Hi, everyone, and welcome back to They Say It Takes a Village. They say the most important trip you take in life is meeting people halfway. My next guest today is a woman who you probably would think twice about getting into a negotiation with. Lousin Mehrabi is a professional negotiator and an inspirational speaker. With 23 years under her belt, Lousin has been instrumental in resolving some of the most complex billion-dollar negotiations around the world. And she's with me today to talk to me about exactly that, the art and power of negotiation, and how it applies in every facet of our lives. So having said all that, let's dive right in. Lousin, thank you so much for taking the time out and coming on They Say It Takes a Village. I am so excited to have this conversation. I feel like it's been long overdue.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful that you're here. Thank you for being here.
Me too. Thank you for inviting me.
Just for, obviously, everybody who's listening who don't know who you are, who is Lousin Mehrabi? How can you define what you do?
What I do? Well, that's easier because who is, I believe we always answer with our job title or saying things like, I'm a mom. But if you go a bit deeper, like, who are we really? You know, if you strip off all of those things, if you're not allowed to say what you do, if you're not allowed to say that you're a mother, that you're a wife, that you're a sister, that you're whatever you are, then what's left? I think it's so fascinating.
It is fascinating
Like
because
when
I
we go
had
to
that question.
soul level.
Yeah. I had that question and I was a bit, I don't know, taken back, and I thought, good question. So I've put you on the spot. Who is Lousin Mehrabi?
Well, I will answer the easy one, the work one.
Okay.
So I'm a professional negotiator.
Yeah.
So I help people with their complex negotiations, from the boardroom to the living room. Any type of high stakes negotiations where you literally cannot afford to not win.
That's incredible. I love that boardroom to the living room. You're also a mother.
Yeah.
You also do 101 things. You're an educator as well. And it's just, the list goes on. Now, obviously, today we'll be talking about, you, like you said, you are a professional negotiator. And I feel negotiations is something that, honestly, we do on a minute-by-minute basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we don't realize it, but it is done on a daily basis. Literally, we all negotiate all the time.
Absolutely.
But in your opinion, what is the definition or true definition of a negotiation?
There are many definitions, and people often think that negotiation is linked to sales, which it isn't. I mean, when you're selling, you can negotiate, but imagine you come to me and say, I want to sell you my shoes. And I love your shoes, by the way.
Thank you.
And
They're very uncomfortable. Thank God we're sitting down.
I couldn't walk on those, I would fall. But imagine you say, okay, they are 1,000 dirhams. And I'm like, okay, done. Boom. You just sold, but we didn't negotiate. Okay, so I want to immediately debunk the myth that negotiation and sales are the same thing. They're not. So then what is negotiation? Negotiation is basically of the very, and I've defined this in different ways, but the basic of the basic is you negotiate to get your needs met.
Okay.
So you want something, you need something, the other party might not want to give it to you, and that's when a negotiation starts. Another way of looking at it is negotiation is a way to resolve conflict. There is a conflict, you want to go from a disagreement to an agreement, that's where negotiation comes in.
So having said that, we met in the Crunch Mom Summit, and you said something that I was like, this is actually so true. You said that we negotiate from birth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that stuck by me. What did you mean by that? I felt the way I think people look at negotiation is quite a sophisticated skill, but you kind of stripped it away and were, almost, it's a primal thing.
Absolutely. So when we go back to the definition of getting your needs met, from the second you are born, you start yelling and screaming and crying because you have a need. It can be a need for affection, it can be a need for food, it can be a need because you're thirsty, whatever it is. So you start crying because that's the only mean you have as a baby. And then we continue our lives and we continue putting in whatever we think will work to get our needs met. Now, there are many adults still stuck in toddler behavior. to get their needs met.
We all know a couple of those.
We all know them. But basically, negotiation is a way to get your needs met. If you look at it that way, then yes, we all negotiate every single day. We all negotiate all the time. We live in a world where obviously we have disagreements with each other, and that's a very good thing. So in order to get your needs met, you need to know how to ask for it, how to go about a no, how to say no yourself when somebody else wants something from you. So yes, negotiation is everywhere. And once you realize that and you see life through the lens of negotiation like I do, it just becomes so fascinating. And you realize that there are so many different skills that come into play if you want to be a good negotiator. From psychology to neuroscience to body language to micro expressions to communication skills, like it's all a part of it, and that's why we're never done learning. And I'm so passionate about teaching this stuff.
You didn't start off as a professional negotiator. You started off in the world of finance.
Right.
I mean, what was the transition? What compelled you to start? I mean, were you just naturally good at it? Is this something that you've always felt passionate about?
I think there was an element of being naturally interested in it.
Yeah.
I grew up in a household of 4 children, 3 daughters, with a very strict dad. And my father wouldn't let us go out and party and do all this stuff, which now as a mom I understand. But
I've been there, done that.
I understand. Thank you, Daddy.
Yeah.
But as a child, as a teenager who just wanted to go out with my friends and explore and do fun stuff, it was always a hassle to get approval from my dad to actually go out. So my sisters would push me forward and say, Luz, go negotiate with Daddy. Because somehow I did have the tactics to talk to my father in a way to get a yes. So is it natural? Is it born? I don't know, but at least I was interested in exploring it. And I remember when I was 14 years old, I was cycling to the library with my sister, and we would go every week and get all the books we wanted. And I was in the library looking at the books, and I took a book which was about lobbying, become better at lobbying.
Okay.
And my sister was like, Luz, come on, take books your own age, you know? But I was like, this is so fascinating to know how to influence people so that they do what you want them to do. So yes, I was always interested in this. And then I did a business school, started working in finance. I've worked on and off 15 years on trading floors of investment banks and a stock exchange. So there, of course, I was negotiating a lot. I was responsible for sales. And so I was negotiating with suppliers, with other stock exchanges, with other banks, with financial regulators. Those were the type of financial negotiations and commercial negotiations that I was carrying out. And in my last job at the stock exchange, I was fortunate that they invested a lot in trainings. So they brought in 2 professional negotiators to train us. We were selected, we were like 15 people, and they taught us for a year, Raya, not like 2 days, a year, every other week. They taught us everything from lie detection to micro expressions to body language to profiling to obviously negotiation, influence, persuasion, everything. And I was so fascinated. And one day I was listening to one of the trainers and thinking, I just want to do what you do.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a few years, I joined them, started providing their trainings here in the Middle East and then the whole world, and then created my own method, added that to the list. So now, I teach companies, I train, I give advisory, I help them behind the scenes, I help negotiators prepare. And then on personal level as well, I coach people everything which is NEAL, meaning negotiations, emotional intelligence, and leadership.
I mean, whoa. It's a lot. It's also, as you're talking, obviously in that field or in that area, it is quite heavily male dominated.
Oh, for sure.
How did you navigate that? I mean, to get into something, I always find every time you say, the stock exchange, and it is a stereotype, and I know it's definitely a stereotype, and I think things are changing, but I think it still remains to be quite male dominated.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the reality.
Did you feel, I feel like there's two ways that you could go. Did you go in sort of guns blazing and like, this is it? Or were you slightly intimidated at the beginning? And how did you navigate that?
I didn't choose finance.
Yeah.
I rolled into it by coincidence. I was 18 years old looking for a job, any job, to pay for my studies in the Netherlands. And I had a friend who worked in a bank, and I applied and got hired, and that's how it all started. So it was a bit by coincidence. Intimidated, I would say no, because I've always naturally been very comfortable in male dominant environments.
Okay.
Even as a kid, I used to have mainly boy friends, not boyfriends.
Yeah.
My dad would kid me, remember? But male friends.
Friends, yeah.
And I just thought it was easier to hang out with men. They're more simple. I tend to be very direct, so that just matches well with men. So grew up in that environment. No, I wasn't intimidated. I even felt very comfortable. But because I used to be very much in my masculine energy, so that was my comfort zone.
So you
But yes,
thrived.
it's
Yeah.
definitely a man's role, especially the trading floors. Like women tend to have the roles in legal, in marketing, and events, in compliance even. But when you go on the trading floor itself, where it's the actual trading and sales happening, and when you go in the leadership roles, unfortunately, it's still very male dominant. So yeah, there's work to be done to
Yeah.
get that.
Absolutely. And I feel like, again, a lot of you do put emphasis and focus on sort of strengthening that aspect, especially for women. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think just to get down to like the very basic aspects of negotiation, what are key elements in a negotiation? I mean, as you enter in it, what is it that, it's kind of like if you were to, sell something to somebody, there's always like unique selling points. Are they the same type of equivalent once you enter a negotiation?
I always say it's not necessarily about learning how to negotiate better,
Yeah.
because honestly, anyone can do that easily and for free now on YouTube. Ask AI, and you will know exactly what you need to do to negotiate better. Okay?
Okay.
And yet, the majority of people are lousy negotiators. Why is that? And the way I train people is, let's forget about what to do to negotiate better. That's the easy part. Let's talk about what to do to become a better negotiator, to incarnate it. So it's not
you
just
embody
skills,
it.
you embody it.
Yeah.
Exactly. You become it. It's not something that you just do when you go in and have a salary negotiation, for example, and then you leave and you forget about it. It's you become it. So you actually do it everywhere, with your spouse, with your kids, with your neighbor, when you're selling your car, when you're buying a house, when you're negotiating something that somebody that you love needs. Anything, and even the small things. For example, let's say that as soon as there's a disagreement and you have the willingness to go to an agreement, boom, you're in a negotiation, whether you realize it or not. So it can be, honey, where do we go for date night? I want to go there, but I want to do that. Boom, you're in a negotiation. Honey, what shall we have for dinner? Where shall we go on holidays? If there's a disagreement, you're in a negotiation. So we're all constantly in negotiations, and let not even start about negotiations with our kids, right? Like they don't want to eat the veggies, they don't want to
Get
sleep,
in
they
the
don't want to
bath,
go
get
to
out of the
school,
bath,
they
brush
don't
your
want
teeth.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all negotiations. We all
negotiation.
negotiate it constantly. So instead of me teaching you do this and then that will happen, which is impossible because every single negotiation is different. Every person you negotiate with is different. It's more about how can I become a better negotiator? What are the elements that I need to incarnate or that I need to get rid of to make sure that I become a better negotiator in everyday life?
Okay, so having said that, then you're mostly focusing on that person's mindset as opposed to anything else.
Not alone. It's mindset.
Yeah.
It's competence, the actual skills. And then there is the third element that I'm the most passionate about, that I believe we don't teach enough. Like, I don't know anybody else who goes into this in detail, which is composure. How do you remain calm in stressful situations? How do you remain calm when people say no? How do you remain calm when people push your buttons? That, I think, is a key element in being a good negotiator, this element of self-control.
I have to ask. I mean, that's a big one. It's a big one to even. Don't you find that that's a bit? I mean, can you teach it, or is it personality specific?
No, you can absolutely become better at it. You can absolutely become more calm, but it's not a 5-minute fix.
No.
It is personal development, it is healing, it is going inward, it's all the things we don't want to do. It's not comfortable. And just like everything, I like to ask questions always the other way around. Like, what makes it that we're not calm? and then we can tackle those and get rid of them. So I apply this method, which I call VEST, because, I have worked a lot and learned from fascinating high stakes hostage negotiators, special forces, secret services, FBI. My amazing mentor, Gary Nesner. Hi, Gary. Shout out to you again. He has built the whole negotiation method for the FBI. He has worked with and trained hundreds of other negotiators. He is a fascinating man. He's written an amazing book. He was the boss of Chris Voss, that many people know through his book. And he also always says self-control is a very big one. And then there is likability, there's obviously the listening skills, and there's all the pillars that the FBI teaches. And learning from these type of people, I'm like, okay, that's amazing. Then we have the skills, but thank God, the majority of us and everybody listening, thank God we'll never have to deal with hostage negotiations, or maybe once in our lives, but let's hope not.
Let's hope not, yeah.
Let's hope not. But then in everyday life, there are many situations when we're taken hostage.
I was going to say, I'm like, there's very common similarities with hostage negotiations and life hostage negotiations.
Yeah, so then we can use the same tools, because these people, when they are sent to a very dangerous scene, they are equipped with a vest. Yeah, they have their bulletproof vest. Some of them have their guns based on the job position they have. But you and I, we go in, we don't have any of that.
Completely vulnerable.
Completely vulnerable. So in my trainings, I've actually used that word, vest, to say, what is it that we need to work on to become more calm in stressful situations? So I'm just going to lay it out here for you for free for anybody listening.
Yeah, guys, insider tips.
Insider tips. So VEST stands for the following. V, the first, is for your values. Because when you are clear on your values, you know exactly what are your non-negotiables. Your values should be non-negotiable. So by becoming crystal clear on your values, and I give a tool to become clear on that, we absolutely know ourselves in the sense, this is what I stand for. This is what I'm not willing to negotiate on. So anything or anyone going in that zone, I have the courage to stand up and say, no, I'm not doing this. Like, we're done talking. So that's one element. Then...
It's a big one. I feel like everything that you're going to say is going to be like, yeah.
That we can go deeper and deeper. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give the highlights, because if people change even one of the things that I'm talking about, they automatically become a better negotiator already. Now, the question is, why am I so passionate? Why do I do what I do? Because I truly believe when we learn how to resolve conflict through negotiation, there is less conflict.
That's right.
It's not only that we can resolve it, we can also avoid it. We can prevent it. And then we create a world with less conflict. And who doesn't want that, right? Or a household with less conflict, a relationship with less conflict.
That's almost like the holy grail. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why you can wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning, give a microphone, and I will talk about negotiation, because we don't talk about this enough.
Fair enough.
Right.
So we've got values.
Values. Then the E stands for two things. One, ego.
Oh, big one.
Ego management.
Big one,
right?
Huge one.
Like, I think that is one of the most important things that I see ruin a negotiation table. It doesn't matter whether that's, again, at the table, in the boardroom, or in high-stakes situations. Ego management. Now, and this is something that I was actually thinking about last week that I've never shared publicly yet. And I don't care if it's disruptive or controversial, I'm just going to say it. I believe most men or people in their masculine energy need to work on, how can I manage my ego? How can I calm down my ego? How can I make sure that my ego doesn't ruin a negotiation? Whereas for women, or people mainly in their feminine energy, we will actually need to work on, how can I pimp my ego up?
Really?
Because ego can ruin a negotiation for sure, but is also the thing that will make you go to have that negotiation. Ego is what makes you say, hey, I don't agree with this, I'm going to say something about it. Ego is something that will make you motivated to go and have that difficult conversation. So I believe specifically for women, this is something that's lacking. It's not that they have too much of it, it's that they don't have enough of it.
I get that. I totally get that. And I think you have there is a slight ego, but I feel a lot of the times that gets pushed down because I don't think women had a space or a platform to, it was almost quite shameful to have a big ego because you'll be labeled as this person or,
Exactly. Yeah, we all
and
know the
so,
B word.
we
Absolutely.
all, yeah. And whereas with a man, it was almost like, okay, he's got a bit of an ego. He must be really powerful,
Yeah, he's driven.
driven, focused.
Yeah.
Whereas if a woman does it, it will be misconstrued as something completely different.
Yes, but that good girl syndrome
Yeah.
has held us back for
Absolutely,
centuries.
and I couldn't agree with you. And I think it's not just so much ego; it's almost there
No,
is
but there
an
is a
ego
sense of
element.
healthy ego.
Absolutely.
Ego as a motivator is what we all need. Ego as a negotiator is ruining things.
Okay. So if a woman, so if a woman goes into a negotiation, that E should be raised up a little or brought
I
down
mean,
a
it
little.
depends. It's not. It depends on where you stand on
I know.
it. But I
I'm
think
looking for like the exact formula.
by looking at it this way, by being, and I know I'm disruptive, and I know
Yeah.
I have people who don't agree with me, and that's fine. That's perfect. Let's negotiate.
Yeah.
But
I dare you.
But if you think of it that way, I'm sure there are a lot of women listening to this podcast right now. They're like, oh my God, yeah. It's not that my ego is ruining stuff. It's my ego is, the lack of ego is preventing me to even
Holding me
start.
back. Yeah.
So, yes, I just wanted to put
Put it
that
out
out there.
there.
So,
Yeah.
ego is the second letter. And then the second letter is also emotional intelligence. Because so much of how to be a better negotiator is directly linked to your level of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, when we're talking about skills like emotional expression, being connected to your emotions, being able to understand your emotions, being able to then understand somebody else's emotions, being able to put words on it so that you de escalate a difficult situation, agility, flexibility, adapting, resilience, getting back up from a no or pushback, all those things are emotional intelligence. So that is the second E that we work on.
They are kind of interconnected, aren't they? I feel like if there's, it's again, like you said, that resilience or ability to get back up from a no, that ties in also to a bit of an ego, doesn't it? And how to kind of control those two interconnected feelings and emotions.
Absolutely. And the whole goal is to become aware of it so that then you can develop them and manage them so that they don't manage you,
Yeah.
whether it's your ego or your emotions. Like, we don't want to be too emotional because we didn't know how to manage them. And we don't want to have too much ego that we then ruin a relationship just to satisfy the ego.
That's right. And S?
Then S. The S stands for something that obviously comes in hand as well with high stakes negotiations, which is stress. Understanding stress and our stress responses. And there are many different stress responses. And again, I like to be disruptive in this because we often talk about just the basic fight, flight, freeze. And I want to say, be careful, there's more. And we don't know that that's a stress response. But the fourth F, fight, flight, freeze, the fourth one is what I call flirt,
I love it.
which is the people pleasing,
Okay.
which is you feel pushed in a corner or you feel intimidated. And instead of actually saying what you think about it or putting up your boundaries or expressing what you need, you go into flirt, which is giving compliments, playing the good girl, and trying to get validation from the person that is stressing you out.
So you all know by now, I'm clearly obsessed with Wear That Now and the incredible team that put these outfits together that you see episode after episode. And for those of you who don't know how Wear That Now works, give me a minute and I'll explain. If you guys head over to their Instagram account, which is at wear.that.now, and click the link in their bio, you get to fill out their style survey and almost immediately get connected with your very own personal stylist. That stylist will then go off and curate a bespoke box of outfits to fit your budget, occasion, and style. That box will get sent straight to your doorstep for you to try the clothes and the outfits in the comfort of your own home. The outfits that you love, you keep. And the ones that you don't, you simply return. And that's about it. It's as easy as that. So, if you're anything like me and you have occasions coming up throughout the year, and the idea of going to an extremely busy mall, getting stuck in traffic, and dragging little kids around gives you anxiety, then do yourself a favor. Head over to Wear That Now's Instagram, which is at wear.that.now, and start shopping from literally the comfort of your own home. Under this vest, if you can kind of master these techniques, I mean, I just feel like these are not just negotiation tips, they're life
For sure.
tips. I mean, they're just definitely something where, management of ego and emotional intelligence, to be able to be agile with whatever's going on in front of you, a stressful situation. It's not just, I mean, I feel like we have these experiences all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say when you become a better negotiator, you automatically become a better leader.
Okay, so let's say, for example, you are in a negotiation and things are going sour. They're pear-shaped. It's just not the outcome that you want. Somebody's becoming quite, I don't know, a bit aggressive, showing signs of stress. What would you do in that case? And I'm talking, of course, in a professional environment, and then I'm pretty sure it could also maybe mirror
Same
what
thing.
happens, in
Always.
a personal
Yep.
situation.
It's exactly the same thing. Yes. So we know from research and from neuroscience that the best way to de-escalate somebody else who is expressing signs of stress or emotional deregulation is to put words to it.
Okay.
But in order to put words to it and the right words to it, you need to first be aware of it. In order to be aware of it, you first need to know how to keep yourself calm. Because how often is somebody stressed and then you react in a
Well, I was
stressed
going
way?
to
Boom.
say, because I mean, it would be almost like a tennis match, and it will just constantly escalate.
Exactly.
So it's just, how do you control yourself when you're in a situation where it's just, you can see it spiraling?
Exactly. So that's why I talk so much about composure, about working on how to remain calm. And it has a million benefits when you do this work because it's personal development. It's life. It's, as you said, that's why I called my podcast Life Negotiations, because it's hand in hand and we do it constantly. Negotiation is life. Life is negotiation. Call it whatever you want. By thinking that it's not, you're missing out on important things, on opportunities to build better relationships, on opportunities to make yourself proud by having the difficult conversations, opportunities to stand up for yourself and what you need, opportunities to connect with people because you resolve conflict with ease and ethics. So yes, composure, composure, composure.
That's tough to teach. I feel it is tough because
It's tough to learn, maybe.
it's tough to learn. It's tough to
very
teach.
easy to teach. It's much more difficult to actually implement.
And I always think to myself, I think a lot of it goes back. I mean, if you were to look at a human being, you've got experiences in their lives that has led you to becoming an adult. If around you, your example of negotiations has been quite hostile, whether growing up, in school, with your partner, it's quite difficult to get a handle of that composure. So I think it's definitely, I feel the reason why I say that, obviously I'm a mother, you're a mother. We have little audiences constantly around us. And there is a point where you want to almost display that level of composure
Yep.
within the negotiations that you have with your children. And hopefully they become adults who are able to be resilient enough to come out of a stressful situation or be calm and collected in something that could potentially spiral out of control.
Yes.
So I think, do you ever find, I mean, were you ever in a situation where you felt that you were at a point where I need to pull myself out of the situation, or I can't seem to...
Or I'm going to kill one of my kids.
I mean, not just your kids, but it's like, that's me this morning. But no, just in your professional life.
Of course.
What did you do? Oh, I feel like I need to get down to what did Lousin do in a super, super stressful negotiation where you felt like you were being pushed to the edge? I mean, is it something that you had to dig deep? You had to remember these, sort of strategies to remain calm?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And it has happened many times. And that is when the power of the pause comes in.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to say, hey, this is triggering me. I need a minute. We're going to take a break right now so that I don't say or do things that I'll regret. Boom. And I take a break. But in order to say that, before you say the F word or go,
and just fly off the handle.
do this to yourself or not the thing that you want to say.
Yeah.
And that is where composure comes in before. So this whole, everything that I'm teaching, we do the role plays in environments where the stakes are not high, where we're learning, but we see how our default responses are. Is it fight, flight, freeze? Is it flirt? Is it, there are even others? Or is it face it? Is it, you know what, I'm going to see these things as opportunities to grow, opportunities to grow. Because you're both, your best negotiation teacher is not the last book you read, is not somebody on YouTube, is not AI. Your best negotiation teacher is your last negotiation. It is full of lessons if you're just willing to observe, debrief, and learn from it. Because you are the negotiator and you are the only constant in every negotiation. So you can constantly learn by how did I do? What did I say? What did I not say? How did I feel? How did I react? And all those can be then learning tools for yourself to improve yourself over and over again. And guess what? We're never done. We're never done. And the second you think you're an excellent negotiator is the moment you're going to start making mistakes. So yeah, we need humility to say, I can learn and I am learning every single day. And with that comes the grace of saying, you can't do it well every single time. And of course, there are moments where you're going to say or do something that you regret, and that's called being human. And that's okay, as long as you're willing to learn from it so that you become 1% better next time.
Do you think there's a level of vulnerability within is there space for vulnerability in a negotiation across the board? To be vulnerable or to be, I think vulnerability is...
Listen, depending on the setting and the country and the culture of people you're negotiating with, whether it's diplomatic negotiations, humanitarian, depends. Certain circumstances, yes, certain cultures and situations, no. But where there is always place for is authenticity, is being real, is stopping the bullshit and the masks and the facade and the saying things that you think should be said or acting in a way that you should, because we human beings have an excellent bullshit radar. We're born with it, and this is something that keeps us safe.
Absolutely.
So don't fake being another negotiator than you are. Be you and be authentic and be real. I've had high stakes business negotiations talking about millions of dollars at stake, and I became angry and I say, listen, this really pisses me off. So I'm going to take a minute, go wash my hands, calm myself down, and then come back so that we can continue the conversation in a way that I want it to go.
And that's just who you are.
Yeah, but you need to have the guts to say that.
Absolutely.
Because in the moment, I just want to punch someone in the face. Obviously,
this is just not going the way I want it to go.
That wouldn't help. Or in traffic.
Yeah.
Or, that's a whole other level. If you really want to practice composure, go in Dubai traffic and practice.
I have to ask, obviously you've got 2 decades worth of experience under your belt. What has been to date the toughest negotiation?
All right. Now the answer might surprise you because it wasn't a negotiation. It wasn't a classic negotiation. The toughest negotiation I had, and I still remember the moment and it still makes me emotional, is 2017. My son was 5 years old and the doctors told me there's something wrong with him. And we don't know what yet. So we started a hell of 100 days full of tests and analysis, etc. And they told us, worst case scenario, it is Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is a muscle disease that breaks down all the muscles. There's no cure. Life expectancy is short, and there's nothing you can do, basically. So in that period, in those 3 months, I did all the research and I spent my days and nights on Google and learning everything about this disease that I'd never heard from, what. And the doctors kept telling me, don't assume it's that. It can be other things as well, which are less bad or fatal or whatever. So I remember in that period where I know something is wrong with him, but I don't know what yet. Me negotiating with God. I was negotiating literally on my knees and saying, please, not Duchenne. Please, not this disease. Please, not something for which there is no cure, not something for which I can't handle that. I cannot be the mother of a child who is sick, who is going to be handicapped. I can't handle that. Like you chose the wrong person. I can't. I don't have the shoulders for it. I don't have the strength for it. You know, I'm this career-driven woman in finance. Like you chose the wrong one. Just give me something else that I can manage, but not Duchenne. So, and I remember that really felt, and by this stage I was already trained as a professional negotiator. I remember it really felt like a negotiation. I felt like I was negotiating with the counterpart that was just so much more powerful, that I felt powerless, and that's a horrible feeling. And also the fact that like there was nothing I could do. This was all just like destiny or whatever. And I was like, for fuck's sake, please not Duchenne. So it felt like negotiations because I was even putting things on the table for God, and I was saying, God, if you just make sure that it's not Duchenne, then I promise you I'm going to work for an NGO for the rest of my life for free. And then the day came where we got the diagnosis, and unfortunately it's Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
Lucine, I'm so sorry. I mean, it's these things that happen in our lives. Like you said, you know, one thing that as you were talking, it's not me. You know, it can't happen to me. And I think the journey that you've sort of taken, I feel like, I mean, how are you feeling now? I mean, you had this diagnosis, and how old is your son now?
Alex is now 13, so we're 7 years further.
MashaAllah.
We live in Dubai. I think he's happy, and that's what matters. Of course, the disease is doing its work, so he cannot walk anymore, he cannot stand anymore, he's full-time in a wheelchair. He can barely lift his arms anymore, because that is the progressive aspect of this disease. But wow, it has been a hell of a journey for all of us. I have become the woman I am today because of the disease and everything for Alex.
And I think also at the same time, you know, that your negotiations with God, you know, he's still with you. He's still very much connected with you, your son.
Yes.
And your relationship with him, I assume, is the strongest thing on the planet.
It's very good, thank you. Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, I think it's just these experiences that will shape us to be who we are as human beings. And the work that you do, the help that you provide so many people, do you not feel that these have all kind of led to a path? I feel like you do so much service to so many. And I feel that all has just made up your incredibly different faceted sides of your personality and who you are as a person.
I remember when we got the diagnosis, we decided to move to Dubai. So we came here, and I realized, so by this point, I was already a certified professional negotiator. And I realized how many negotiations I was carrying out for him.
Yeah.
To get him access to a school, to get him access to certain doctors, certain treatments, medical insurance policy negotiations, and all those type of negotiations that I was doing on a daily basis, and I still am. And then there was this pivoting moment in my life where I thought, thank God I was trained in this to be able to face this now. And then the question that immediately came, but what about the others? What about other Duchenne moms? Wait a second, what about other parents? Wait a second, what about other people? We all negotiate constantly. Why aren't we taught this in kindergarten?
Absolutely.
And that is what made me decide to become a negotiation trainer.
Yeah.
That is what made me decide to share this with other people, to actually go out every single day and teach as many people as I can about this, because we need it every single day. We are negotiating for ourselves. We are negotiating for other people, especially as parents. We're negotiating for our children. We're negotiating for our parents, when, we become caregivers, when our parents become old, like we constantly negotiate for ourselves and for people we love. So why aren't we taught? Why don't we know the skills that FBI negotiators know, that business school people know? And why is this only accessible to people who have a certain role in sales or procurement and who call me in to come and teach their high performers? Why is this not for everybody? So yeah, that is my passion. That is my why. That's what I do. Why I do, because had I not been a negotiator, Alex would not have had the
You've
life he has today.
advocated for him through and through, and it's true. And if it wasn't for who you are, I feel like also you are quite instrumental. You do place a lot of your energy on helping women negotiate, I think, in all aspects of their lives.
Right.
And I think, again, your experiences make you the passionate and really very serving person that you are. And that shines through, and it does come through. And I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, what happens to the people who aren't professional negotiators, who do have to advocate and don't have that skill? And it's just, I don't know, life takes you through these really unexpected twists and turns. And we all just have to, like you said, be agile and resilient about it.
Yeah.
You do a lot of work with women. I know that.
Well, I would love to do more, actually.
Yeah, really.
The more I work with women, the more I realize how powerful it is and the ripple effect it has. And yes, I want to do more for women. At the moment, I'm building a negotiation course only for women. It's not because we want to exclude anybody. It's just because there are certain elements that need to be discussed that I have seen on the field that women struggle with, that men don't necessarily struggle with.
What's the biggest one?
The biggest one is the question that I get asked often by women, which I never get asked by men, is when we are entering a negotiation that we know is going to be tough, the question I get asked all the time is, do you think I can do it? No man has ever asked me that question. And as I said, I work more with men than with women. Why is it that we as women can have every single skill that we need and still doubt ourselves? That is something that I want to tackle. I would like to be a mirror for women to see the powerful beings that they are. Because we live in a world where feminine traits and feminine skills and feminine strengths has been put on a back burner as if it's either just normal or not important or even worse. And all the masculine traits, they are like, oh, this is fantastic. You have to be driven and you have to be this and you have to be that. Yes, but where's the balance? And how can we combine both? Because research shows that women negotiate better when they are negotiating for somebody else.
Not themselves.
Not themselves.
That is fascinating.
So I want to switch that and say, hey, if it shows that you can negotiate better than men when you're negotiating for somebody else, that automatically means that you already have the skills. That's why it's not about the skills. It's about what's holding you back from negotiating the way you can and the way you should. That is what I want to tackle in those sessions. And that is why men are not allowed. Sorry. After that, I'll build a negotiation course for men only, promise. Where I'm going to talk about what do we need as men that we can learn from women. And then how can we bridge the gap and make sure that we have teams where we have both skills on the table, where we combine both, where we have the best of both worlds, both feminine, both masculine, and then combine those and get more deals done.
That is honestly fascinating. I love the all women course. Again, I get that. I was having a conversation earlier, and we were talking about the glass ceiling.
Right.
And obviously, women are, there's a proverbial glass ceiling. But the person who I was talking to, and I think they were saying that I don't think it's a glass ceiling. I think it's a self-imposed glass ceiling. And I think with women, the sky's the limit, but we tend to limit slightly.
I absolutely agree with that. I also think it's self-imposed.
I don't know. I think it's. Do you think it's sort of historically ingrained from societies, from culture, from all sorts of things?
100%, because I work with women all over the world.
Yep.
And it cannot be That one person had an idea in Asia, that another woman in India or in the United States, in Europe, is exactly the same. Like, of course, it's something that is in us. It can be ancestral, it can be DNA, whatever it is, it's culture, it's all those things, yes. But the question is, why is it there? Doesn't really matter. The question is, what are we going to do with it now, with the means that we have now in the world that we're living now? I like to look back in the past only as a way to solve something in the future. Like, we don't want to go in and dwell and stay there, because that's another thing that we as women make the mistake. Once we start the healing journey, now we want to understand everything, and then we spend another decade in the past. Like, let it go.
Let it go. Close that chapter.
Or
move
let
on.
it be. Let it be. It's fine. Just go in there, grab whatever you need, and come back to now and build whatever you want to go to. That is what matters.
Yeah.
And I've been in that trap, in this healing journey, and then you want to heal everything and understand everything, and then you're going to share it with your sisters, and you know what happened, and this and that. Yeah, come on, move forward, like, leave it in the past. But if there's one thing that has made a biggest impact on me, and I'm still working on it, that I do think many people, including men, should absolutely work on to heal, is healing the nervous system. Healing the nervous system, because it's literally not just in our minds or our ideas or our mindset, it's literally in our bodies, it's everywhere. The exact same stuff that is holding you back from being calm and composed in stressful situations, it's the nervous system that needs healing. And the good news is, it's not that hard, it's not that long, everybody can do it, but it's action time. Like, you cannot think yourself to healing or do a few hypnosis sessions and then you're there. It's like physiological, somatic level. You need to go in and heal your nervous system, and that is what will help you remain calm, composed, confident, and happy, honestly.
Would that be, let's say, for example, the person who's listening to this, the woman who's listening to this and has tuned in because she is interested in, honestly, getting better at having that level of communication across the board, personal, professional, being able to kind of come out or having outcomes go her way.
Right.
Would that be your biggest advice?
To heal the nervous system?
Yeah.
That is a beautiful start. Absolutely. Yes, because you cannot heal the nervous system without being connected to yourself. And I think you cannot go anywhere without being connected to yourself. So this is a beautiful journey of understanding what's happening, what is my default reaction when I'm stressed, and how can I influence that. And you go in with a lot of compassion of saying, hey, a lot of shit has happened to me, I've survived it all, but my body still remembers. So let's go in and allow it to be at peace now. So it's an inner negotiation that happens. You see, I see everything through a lens of negotiation. It's an inner negotiation. You go in and negotiate with all parts of you that are still there, that are creating drama in your life, really. And you give them what they need, which the number one thing is recognition. Just recognition that, yes, you've been through difficulties. Yes, there were other people who created drama in your life. Yes, you've been through a lot. What is it that you need? Have that conversation. And you know what I do? This is another insight that I will share with you. It's not a secret, but it's something that I do, which again might sound disruptive or weird, but doesn't matter. It's the way I negotiate on a boardroom. I mean, I'm advising a lot of boards. So it's often a table. We're like 8 people, 12 people, whatever it is. And then everybody has something to say. Everybody has different needs. And then we need to decide, okay, what is it that we want to do in order to push this company towards reaching its goal? And then the CEO has to execute, okay? I bring that experience in to doing the exact same thing in my head with myself, all the different part of me. So I imagine I'm sitting on a boardroom table, and then I invite all the parts in. So that is, okay, who's there that needs attention? Then there's my 4-year-old, there's my 8-year-old, there is my 12-year-old rebel, there is my 18-year-old depressed, there is my 26-year-old who's like in a burnout after work. Like, everything that happened to me, I invite them and say, what do you need? What do you need?
It's
what
so funny because
need?
my question to you was, if you could go and tell your younger self.
But which one?
Which one?
Right?
I love that.
But then you integrate all of it. And then what I do is, when we come to a deadlock, so let's say the 18-year-old wants something and the 27-year-old wants something else, because it's in your mind and it's just your imagination, you have access to every single person in the world that you can bring in as an advisor. So you can tap into anyone that you admire and tap into their energy and say, for example, the one I bring in often because I think he's a perfect example of composure is Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Like Nelson Mandela is my advisor in many of those negotiations. I bring him in and I say, Nelson, what do you think?
Call
I
onto
don't care how
his
this
energy.
sounds. Guys, it is so powerful. Just do it. Call upon anyone you want. Bring in the Buddha, bring in Jesus, bring in whoever you want. They're there. The energy is there. And I kid you not, when you bring them in, there is an aspect of you that will start thinking like them. And then you bring in that wisdom and you help resolve the negotiation and you come to an agreement and everybody has felt heard because everybody's allowed to talk and we're not allowed to interrupt each other. And then we come to an agreement that we agree with, and then the you, whichever age you are, that person takes then that knowledge and whatever happened in that boardroom to make the decisions that you need to do, and you go moving forward. This in itself is a healing journey.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that, discussing things with my younger self at different stages of life.
Do it. Absolutely. Like, tell me how it went, okay?
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating. Because all those aspects of you are still there. And they're the ones creating the drama. They're the ones making you react in a way that you regret. It's not the now you. It's not even what somebody said or did. It's what somebody said or did that triggered something that was already there. You cannot be triggered if whatever somebody's saying, it doesn't align with a part of you that believes...
That was there. Yeah.
Exactly. And that was there not because of them. That was there because of something else that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So when you start shining a light on it, they become more calm and you start feeling more inner peace. So have some inner peace negotiations. It's fascinating.
I love that. I feel like that sort of came full circle for the entire interview. Have inner peace negotiation.
Yeah.
Lousin, whoever is listening that wants to reach out to you, how can they?
So this is another funny thing about me. I don't have a website.
Okay.
I don't have a phone number you can call. Of course, I have a phone number, but
I can share her personal
it's not
mobile number.
out there. Nope. But I do share a lot on LinkedIn, and there's some videos on YouTube if you want to learn more. And yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to reach out. And for the women listening, the negotiation course I'm building this is something that interests you, just let me know through LinkedIn, because I really want to create a select group of women that resonate with everything I just shared and that want to go deep. And it's not like fluffy stuff. It's like we go deep and it hurts.
Good.
But at the end of it, it's what's really worth it. So that's what I want to bring out to the world next.
Brilliant. I always end the podcast. I start the episode with a saying, sort of like something that is quite beneficial, and it kind of pulls context and bring context to the episode. Do you have any quote or anything that you kind of live by that you want to share with us today?
I would say this one from Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist who was in the Second World War camps. So he has seen major atrocities, like horrible stuff. And he has this saying in his book that goes something in the lines of, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves.
I love that.
I think that sums up a bit what we discussed.
Absolutely sums it all up. Lousin, thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the emphasis that you place on bettering ourselves as a human being, as opposed to going at something more as if you're moving pieces on a chessboard. I think you bring such an incredible human element on something that not necessarily is looked at that way. And just, I don't know, I love following on and seeing what you're doing and just slowly changing the world on a day-to-day basis. Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Listening to They Say It Takes a Village. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to bringing you another one next week. Don't forget, please subscribe, rate, and review so I can reach and help even more parents. And if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover, please head over to my Instagram page, ittakesavillage.me, and drop me a line.